Welcome back, diary listeners. Thank you so much for returning. I'm doing the intros this week because Rico's off doing errands for our family, so thank you, honey. This is It Worth It? Part 2 of our 3-part podcast and diary entry with Anthony Red. Enjoy, everybody. Welcome to the Apprenticeship Diaries, where raw meets refined.
Let's be real, we're still working on refining.
What it took, what it takes, and the stories that are made.
Join us as we learn from professionals about how their stories began.
Well, I'm a product of Baltimore City public school education and didn't test well, so ended up, at a certain high school. And I was sort of adamant, that I wanted to learn certain things. And I would go to the library. I stopped going to lunch. I started going to the library instead of going to lunch, which saved me a ton of money, actually. But
well, and that's amazing, dude. Reminds me of one of my favorite quotes of like, you're paying for an overpriced education that could have cost you $1.50 at the public library.
Oh yeah, the Goodwill Hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I started going to the library, and oh man, I started to learn about like psychology and things like that. So I had to take a psychology class in high school, and we were learning about ghosts and stuff that had nothing to do with yeah, they were talking about mediums, and we were watching videos, and it was nothing like what I read at the library, about psychoanalysis. So I stood up, I literally stood up in class and was like, look, this has nothing to do with psychology. I'm sorry, we're not learning anything. And, the scene in Jerry Maguire, and when he quits his job, gives a speech, and he goes, all right, who's coming with me? I sort of did that thing, and literally nobody.
I had one of those moments, but yeah,
nobody did a peep, nobody moved, and
Nope.
I was quickly removed from the class.
But good for you, man. They made a whole movie about that guy.
yeah, I had that moment. The teacher, though, I looked at the teacher's face, and she was hurt. I hurt her feelings, but at the same time, I know you're glued to a curriculum. I have sympathy for that, but I just wanted to learn.
I cannot imagine that was her curriculum.
I mean, yeah, it was the school's curriculum that she's tied to. That she's, I don't even like spirits.
I don't think so, because I don't know. That sounds like somebody who might have proposed something that they thought, oh, this would be fun. I could easily teach this. And the school was like, yeah, it's psychology. What do we really know about it? Sure. And then they just gave her the green light. That's what that sounds like to me. So that's probably why she was hurt, was because she was like, oh shit, like this little asshole just called my ass out.
Yeah.
But it was right. She needed to be called out. You probably helped her.
Yeah, I was pretty passionate. I mean, I took English 4, and we were learning Beowulf and Canterbury Tales.
Mm-hmm.
And I hung out after school. I had a crush on the teacher. I hung out after school, and I was like, look, what does Beowulf and Canterbury Tales have to do with Black inner city high school kids in 1998? Can't we learn Catcher in the Rye or something, like something sort of contemporary? I just was not connecting with Beowulf, and I wish we could. She told me straight up, this is what I'm allowed to teach, and that was that.
Huh. Well, I feel like if I were to critique that, is it's not a good teacher that defaults to that, because if it were me, I think I, at least at this point, would say, if I were to critique her, in hindsight, of course, it's unfair. Who knows what I would be like had I taken her position on? But the fact of the matter is that I don't usually take on positions where somebody tells me what I can and can't do within the scope of what I know what will reach the people that I am addressing. I don't do that. I will Jerry Maguire it every single time. I will be like, I am not only leaving, but I'm going to burn this shit down behind me. Like, that's how I am. So for me, and I know that's not everyone. I know that there are people who don't even think beyond the rules or the structure that is set before them, but I cannot. For me, if the structure doesn't make sense, or if it's not working, or if it's leaving, we have this whole phrase, no kid left behind. That can't be just a saying. That has to be real. And if it isn't real, then it's not working for me. So, with that, I mean, coming from my experience, I had teachers where they would hang out with me. Like, they would let me skip lunch to hang out with them in their classroom so that we could have extra time, so they could turn me on to different things that, and I'm sure that was, not just me, it was other people's experience, but they did not allow the curriculum to be their God or their commandments. They didn't. They were like, no, I see this person, I see their talent, I see their genuine seeking heart to learn. I'm going to give them what they need. Come hell or come high water. If it risks my job, then it risks my job. But I think there's some parts of that the teachers still have. I think where teachers have gone awry, I think, is where they're waging war with parents and parenting right now. You can't do that. You have to work with parents, and nobody's going to care about that kid more than the person that made them. And there's very few cases where that's not the case. So, that person has their child for a lifetime, whereas you have them for a half a year, sometimes a year.
Yeah.
So understand that, like, you're coaching someone, but, I think that if I were to say something to you in that moment, I've been like, well, there's nothing keeping you from reading these things. And if you would like, to read them and discuss them with me, I would love to do that. We can do that together. I would happily, read some books that you find, and we can, if you want to dive into other things that strike you, that's fine. The whole point of this whole thing is for me to know that you are digesting this information and that you are critically thinking about it in a way that is, and that's the thing about those curricula, is that, Beowulf and all that, they're classics that talk about very particular hero journeys and fortified frameworks of these iconic hero journeys that are, they're meant for somebody to take those things at their core, at their structure, and then look at other things in their life and apply them. So it's not, and that's the other thing, is that what was taught to me in my foundational, I was like, because I had the same thing, like, I don't want to draw fucking vases and like, I don't want to do still life. Like, when are we going to get to like the people? And they're like, well, the foundation and then the things that you learn structurally about the lighting, about the contrast, about the color, about the composition, about all of this, the structure, everything about this still life is applicable. The kind of tools that you're honing to do this still life will be there for you no matter what you take on. So that's really probably what she should have said, instead of, I have to teach this. She should have said, this is structurally core. This is a parable that is core at its nature. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the things that you just talked about. This is what it does have to do with. And this is what you are supposed to take from this and apply to other portions of your life in any way that you want to. But if you would like to read more, we could read more.
Oh yeah, that would have been appreciated. She was first right out of college, I believe.
Yeah.
Something interesting did happen senior year. I got into journalism class.
Nice.
I don't know how I got in, but they were like, "You're gonna take journalism, and it's for certain students." And I was like, "Great." And we had a teacher, Mr. Roscoff, who was great. Let me do a poetry magazine. Design it. We did it on a early, like one of those old Mac computers, and the first digital cameras we kind of worked with, the Sonys, and it was something really interesting. There was a little room with all these books. And I said, "Hey, Mr. Roscoff, what's up with these books?" And he's like, "Oh, they're damaged. We're going to throw them away." And there was Carl Jung and Nietzsche and Paradise Lost by Milton. There was an astrology book. It was like, dude, these are Basketball Diaries is in there by Jim Carroll. It was like, dude, this is for you. These are books for you to have, because they were torn or some of the pages were backwards. So I just took them and, I read them, especially like Basketball Diaries. I mean,
Yeah.
that was pretty dope.
Well, and something I picked up from you that I don't do as much as I'd like to do, but I've seen people who do it, is you note take within your book reading. Like you like to underline things and pull certain things out and put your personality in the book. And I think that's kind of distinctive, knowing that you were given a lot of these books that were already kind of roughed up and, they were taken out of common, cycle anyway. So it gave you the permission to, like, they were going to get thrown away anyway. So why not,
I still underline.
Yeah.
I have to have when I read, I gotta I don't go back and look for the underlines, but it's like, it seems important at the time to sort of relate to what I'm, oh, this is important, I don't tend to read books, so
it is important. And as your son that you have now digest the books that you read, he'll see where you were at. That's why it's important, is because it's not about you rereading it and remembering what you were remembering at that time, though that could happen too. It's about having a book that your dad had and where your dad was at that moment when he was reading it and what he noted. I think that those things, and that's why I like things like that now. At first I was like, oh my God, you're writing in a book. Like, that's how awful. But as I've become, I think, more of an artist and more appreciative of just everything, mark making in general, graffiti, the idea of being in the now and present and marking those things, and kind of, I was here kind of thing, like the Joker, kind of like, the Joker was here kind of thing. Those are some beautiful things. They're the things that those are the high art things. And they might not be recognized at the time, but with time, they usually are seen of like, whoa, this was pretty big, man. This is epic. So that's if more people can, like, I guess, take on some of the things that you just do naturally, I think that would be great, because it would help document. There's a huge documentation of all of your life and the books that you've read, the things that you've made, the photography, you've gone through all of it for the most part. The only thing that I don't think that you've really taken up is the painting and drawing. That's where I'm kind of more of it, but the technology and, photography and video and audio, you've dipped your toes into all of that. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember I was like going to like Circuit City, is like old electronics store, and I saw movies playing on computers, and I was like, movies can play on these? Like, you can really do some stuff with these computers? Like, and I bought one, and I was like, I haven't, maybe I think like a computer, like the natural affinity for technology and imagery and programs. And, it's just, some things are intuitive, some things are not.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are some editing things where it's like, what? is going on. You know, that's why I wanted to take the Premiere Pro class, because that was a program where I was like, I am not grasping this.
Some things are not designed to be. And I think Premiere Pro is one of those ones that it's like anything where it's being sold and it's a product. You know, and that's kind of the other thing for the Apprenticeship Diaries is that, you know, in tattooing, there's this huge like thing that's called gatekeeping, you know, like you're gatekeeping. Yeah.
Like,
And there's a part of that when you want to make something commercial, because you kind of have to in some ways in order for it to be something that you can make money at. And in a lot of this technology, that's what I see is that the lack of intuitiveness is really just a gatekeeping tool, so that you know, buy this package or buy this, you know, course with this person so that you can better. And it's just all these things that kind of spin off of the next thing. If you were to teach yourself, you know, you end up spending probably as much as you would for a college class or education or whatever. If you can be, I guess, I don't know, I'm not sure, but if you can see it beyond all of the gatekeeping things, I guess you're able to hack it quicker, faster, and more intuitively, just because you can see through it. But I think a lot of those things are set up as doors that make you open them, which, you know, being on the other side of it, you know, for tattooing, there's a lot of things that people perceive as gatekeeping that are very much so about us being cautious. Because I mean, just the other day, a girl tagged me into and I don't, it's not going to say a girl, Nicole Williams art. She tagged me in a beautiful drawing that she was doing as a part of her reinventing the tattoo assignment. And it's a draw along, and she was doing a hand design, and I couldn't stop myself. It was a beautiful design, gorgeous. It would be an awesome tattoo. But it's a big thing in tattooing is that a hand tattoo is no small thing. You know, a hand tattoo is not for novice. Yes, that's a gorgeous tattoo design. Yes, you know, when you are ready, when a person is ready, that is not something that you just do on somebody. I see people walking around just getting hand tattoos and they don't have another tattoo on their whole body. And it's like, no, son, that is your moneymaker. That is powerful magic you are working with right now. You do not mark your hands until you know how you make your money, and you are vetted in that, very much so. And as a person who delivers a tattoo like that, it's equal. It's a shamanistic kind of thing of where you withhold that access until you know that person has quote unquote earned it. And that means that they are ready for that tattoo. They have survived to this point. You know their life, the way they make their money. You know enough about them to know that they can handle a tattoo like that, but you never frivolously give a tattoo like that. And I couldn't look at her beautiful design without telling her that. And I was like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I go in with like that. I know it's not often received really well, but it's very important. It's karmically important that you know that, because it's not to be frivolous. I don't think tattoos should be frivolous, honestly. You know, and if they are, they should be in that nature. Like I have dots in my ear. That's my like frivolous tattoo. You know, and whatever, you know, like it's dots in your ear.
Yeah. I got a star. That was my
you're frivolous.
Sort of, yeah, just like, hey, you know, it's summertime, you know, you know, it's just like a design, you know, music. I think like the comedy, like the music gatekeeping, it's like teenagers or teenage girls wearing band t-shirts, and it's the joke of, we'll name 3 songs.
Yeah.
You know, by the band. You know?
And we've become those people, those old heads that used to do that to us. And, you know, I think for you and I, they were probably pleasantly surprised, because I watched my grandparents' generation but that's because that was the founding of that medium. Like when it came down to like videos of that time, like the greatest generation, that's when video and all that stuff was like birthing and was becoming amazing. To be a celebrity at that time meant you had to be so talented. You had to sing and act and dance and the full package. Like, you were not just this, you were everything, and it meant something. And so I think to digest the mediums and the art of my grandparents' generation, and now it's just, there's so much, but I'm sad because our generation of video, like the late 80s and early 90s, fucking gold, dude. Like, gold movies, such good movies, and so happy, man, and joyous and groundbreaking. The things that they discussed, everything, it's so sad that people are watching TikTok at 10 second, to a minute at a time, and they're not taking the time to watch a good movie from our generation.
Yeah, it was the 90s or late 80s was like, you could be wonderfully weird. Like,
oh my God.
Benny and June is a movie about two sort of autistic neurodivergent.
Everybody was having sex with everyone else. Everybody was mixing and mingling. You could be as weird as you wanted to be.
It was cool. And then you have like Risky Business where the guys dance in underwear, to rock and roll. I mean, it was a independent studios could make movies and be picked up by major distribution. So it was a really, really unique time.
And they were raw. They were not, like you said, they were independent films. You didn't need these blockbuster budgets to make movies. And they were real too. I was watching a backstage exploration of The Breakfast Club, and here that it took place in one room pretty much, and then a little snippets here and there of this, cool. The school that it wasn't even a school, I forget what it was, but they dressed it like a school, and it ended up being perfect. Or it was an old school that they refurbished just for this this one movie, but it was virtually just one room. That was it. And one of the actors, the geek guy, I forget his real name, but his mom and his sister were his actual mom and sister in the film. They just casted his real mother and sister as his co-stars. I mean, it's that was the time, and it's so sad to me that you have these films that are just everything is CGI, and it's so ostentatious, and all the colors. And I've watched films now, not watched them. I have looked at the first, I think, 10 minutes and been nope, that is far too much for what I can handle right now.
Yeah, I'm really picky. If I turn on a story and I'm well, I kind of know where this is going, I really lose interest. I like to be surprised. Oh, where is this going? It doesn't really, if I catch on too fast, then I'm disinterested.
Yeah. For me, it's as soon as I lose respect for the characters, there has to be one that I'm what is redeemable about you? Why do I keep breathing in this world? If you cannot tell me why I should keep breathing in this life, then I don't want to watch this film, because this sucks. This sucks. Right. I mean, I can watch a documentary and watch that if I want to watch what human depravity can produce, but I don't want to watch a movie or a series where every single fucking character becomes somebody that I am disappointed in. No. So it's not cool.
I like documentaries, and I think HBO is kind of the standard. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've seen Netflix documentaries, but yeah, is the guy's name is Banksy?
Banksy is amazing. His one Exit Through the Gift Shop is really good. Yeah.
And they have called Dear New York, where every day he would do a piece, on a wall or some sort of installation. One thing he did was he had a Grim Reaper sort of skeleton figure riding around in a go-kart in a fence. So every day people would go and try to find the Banksy, you know,
Right.
and where's it going to be today in New York? And it was like a hipster treasure, you know, I don't know, like Easter egg hunt. Like, you know, they would just try to ride around, and, you know, they had this regular couple. They had art gallery people. And one time he did out of stones, he made a skull. And it was outside of like a mechanic's place. So these guys got a U-Haul and loaded the piece into the U-Haul. And they said, hey, we see all these people around here. We know something's going on. We're gonna try to get money for this thing. And this art gallery Banksy collector had to go to the slums of New York and try to negotiate with these guys who had stolen, you know, whatever, you know, taken whatever you want to call it, the Banksy. And it was really interesting. It was really interesting.
Yeah. Banksy is an amazing artist. You remind me a lot of him. But nobody knows who he is or if he's a he. That's the whole point is like the lack of, the only people who know him, I think, or this person, is the fact that they have encountered them in the subculture of graffiti artists, performance artists. These people are like, you know, I don't know. They're kind of like, how could I explain it? It's just so cool. They're neat little things that pop up from the city, you know, like a plant that just springs up from a curbside or something, and it was never planted there, but it somehow got there.
I know he's from England. You know, the very last piece he did was balloons. I think it was like balloons on the wall that just said Banksy, and this guy tried to steal it, and they were like, "You're not Banksy. You can't take that," you know. And they were like, "What about the cops?" You know, the cops came to stop this guy, and they took the balloons, and the last piece is them loading the balloons into the cop, you know, where they load criminals, you know. And somebody goes, "Yeah, they finally got Banksy."
Well, and that's the thing, is that that's why I really like Exit Through the Gift Shop, because it talks about kind of like how we were talking about earlier, the idea of institutionalized education. It's the same thing, institutionalized art versus people who are artists. You know, artists are not people who necessarily are going to be ever in a museum. That's not the point. We had this conversation at one point. You know, I know that you had, you know, I'm like, you know, you don't make art because you want to see it in a museum. You know, you make art because you have to. You make art because it's a part of your soul. And the greatest art is the art that, you know, really matters to the people that you know, witness it, you know, that it reaches them, and there's this thing that happens between you and them that it doesn't matter if anybody else sees. And, you know, whether there's money for it or not, the money, you know, as a professional artist, I have to make money in order to pay my bills, but the stuff that happens in my studio is priceless, man. Like I meet my clients and I get to know them. A lot of them become friends. A lot of them we hang out afterwards. You know, we try to find time where I'm not inflicting pain on them. You know, and it's really, really, really cool. That's why I love tattooing, is because it's such a connector to people. And for somebody like me who, I think, you know, like you, I go into things with this like wonder and innocence about things. Like I don't always, you know, I want to say the right thing or I want to do the right thing, but I don't necessarily, because I don't know everything. But when you get access to human beings on a regular basis like that, and you get to sit with them for hours and do a really cool thing that's commenting on something that really matters to both of you, I'm able to put food on my table and do something that's in me that I can do, that I guess when people look at it, they're like, wow, that's amazing. For me, it's what I do. It's what I have to do and what I love to do. And for them,
Yeah.
it's their experience.
Yeah. The journey to tattooing, I think, is really interesting for you. I remember, didn't you were like doing temporary tattoos, I think, in
Baltimore.
Harbor, yeah, in
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore, Harbor Place. So it was sort of like, oh, there's this thing opening up, this sort of pathway, and I think it's awesome that you sort of went through it. And you have, sometimes when you make, a photo, or you don't see the people who see it or get the reaction or the commentary, and that's sort of more of a direct.
Sometimes that's purposeful, though. There's a lot of people who just like to make the art and they don't really, they don't like people, or people freak them out. And, the art is the only comfort that they have. And they're just so happy that people love their art enough to pay them for it. And they don't ever have to interface with anybody. It's not me,
Right.
But I guess I would have to imagine that's them. That's what I'm sad about. Like, there are some artists right now that are freaking out because they're developing this AI technology and these apps so well that you can pay $12 and render a picture of you in like 50 different versions of famous masterpieces like that.
Right.
They're freaking out because they're like, dude, like, stop paying these people, like, quit it. What are you doing? And it's just, it's the live, laugh, loves of the world. Okay. A pumpkin spice latte is good. And it's probably, you can sell it for like $6 a pop, and people will buy it and look forward to it every single year.
Yeah. I was on a bulletin board, and somebody made a post and it was like, is it worth it for me to go out and take photographs? Because, this AI stuff, it's like, you have the passion and you want to do it, or
if you're asking that question, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you're already asking that question, then no, the answer is no, because you'd already be going out there and taking pictures. Like, that's the truth. Is that, like, is it even worth it for me? Like, well, if you're already thinking that way, that's like people are going, how do you tattoo somebody? Aren't you worried you're going to mess up? I'm like, well, dude, if I went into it with that thought, like, yeah, I was like, no, I don't, there's nothing but success in my mind. Like, I don't leave room. And, will little what you perceive to be fuck ups happen? Sure. But that's why you're getting a person to do this and not a machine, is because this is something that only a human being can deliver you. And those little happy accidents are part of the artistic expression that is rare, that will make it so that this can never be done again, ever. Yeah. So it's really cool. And that's what, when I've seen those posts that are about the AI, I'm like, listen, what we do will never die, because human beings, as long as we are human beings, will always want to reconnect with the source. It's just, in fact, us as artists become more valuable in a world where there's that kind of AI technology, because while things get watered down that way, the things that we do become more essential for people and climb in value, because it's people will come to us very much so wanting something real, and they will pay whatever it costs in order to do that, because they'll have gone through all of the superficial, all the band-aids, and found that nothing felt like anything. Nothing gave them more than just a hit of momentary gratification. It was gone.
Yeah, I mean, photography as a service is, you're not going to want an AI wedding picture, or who
am I to say? Who am I to say?
I mean, you might.
But for me, it's like I really don't know what most people would want to do. I really don't. I like the whole, is it worth it for me? Like, those are the kind of questions that I don't even ask myself, because I'm just so fucking happy to be here. Like, life is way too cool. Is it worth it? Hell yeah, man. I'm in. Like,
yeah. my stuff is so, sort of like coming from the inside, self-motivated. But I did go to a wedding, recently, and I watched, the wedding photographer, asked a couple questions. My girlfriend's mother was like, "Hey, you never know. You might want to, And I'm trying to I was trying to envision myself like doing it.
I think you'd be
every
good at
week.
it. I think you'd actually really like it, honestly. I loved servicing weddings when I did hair for them. They're very fun.
The wedding experience, I actually got emotional, with the vows. I was like, wow, this is really, you don't want to fuck that up, of
No.
course, with pictures and everything. But I hadn't been to a wedding as an adult.
Yeah.
So I was really taking, I was, dancing and, you pay the bride $1, you get all these traditions I had no idea about.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, you should look into it. You would love that because it is so vested in symbolism and tradition and depending on what kind of wedding, like my favorite are the Indian weddings because there's so many traditions and like they don't go on for a day. It's like 2 weeks. It's like this whole thing. There's like formal like meals that they have. There's all these presentations. The groom is supposed to come in on a white horse. And like there's like all this stuff. It's crazy. The women have to get the henna done and there's like all this ceremony. It's so beautiful. So all the gold, all the like fabrics, all the colors. It's just so gorgeous. And then performance.
I would I was talking to somebody who went to India and had an interesting experience. But yeah, I asked the photographer, like, how'd you get into it? He's like, just little, what settings do you use? And they were like, well, my friend was like, they needed help one day. And, I came along and I've been doing it ever since, which I think is a really cool way to sort of, get into that field, or to approach it that way.
I think you'd be really good at that.
Yeah.
I think you'd be very good at that. Yes. And you make a lot of connections that way. That's what I liked about doing hair too, is that, and tattooing is that I'm pretty sure that if there's a profession that you would need to get in contact with, I know at least one person that I could ask, or because I service everybody. Like I've tattooed everybody. I've done the hair of everybody. Like when you do weddings, you meet people. Like there's people like you who show up and who ask questions or who interact or who say, hey, come over here, get this photo. And then you get this little moment. It's pretty cool. And, you really have to get intimate with the people that you're working with too, because it's a big moment for them. And if there's one thing that I know that most of my friends will spend really good money on, it's the photos, because that will be a make or break of your wedding.
That's sort of, once in a lifetime, hopefully,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to have really good photos. I mean, I've heard such horror stories of people with their photographers and what they've had to go through. And, it's just a shame. So thinking about what you could do for people in that way would be really cool. I think you'd be great at it.
Yeah. I was asked about a couple for some engagement photos. And at first I was like, and then
and you could go further because you would actually be good for like honeymoon kind of stuff too. Like if they wanted an intimate thing as well, you're fine with that.
That too. And then I was like, hold on, I understand love. I know what love is. I know what love looks like. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. So I told him, whenever you want to do that, I understand that, so, I was open to it. I mean, recently I had an idea for my son to make him sort of a king, like a prince, because he's so dramatic. It was going to be like a comedy, drama, happy, sad, sort of makeup and with a crown. And I was like, well, I don't have all like props and stuff. And I was like, why don't I just do like a basic portrait photo session with him? I'd never done that. I mean, I've been taking pictures my whole life, but not in the studio setting. So we got down there and, he had my hat on and, he was doing poses, being himself and random. And I posted it and, people really liked it. They know him. They enjoyed the photos. And there was one where he pointed his hand at the camera that I didn't quite get in focus. And I was talking to my girlfriend. I said, I really didn't get that shot. And she goes, hold on, the model lives with us. You can do it again tomorrow.
That's just
I was like,
that's right.
I was like, you know what? That's right. And the next day, the sun was coming through differently. You had to recalibrate everything, to try to adjust. And, so when the sunlight was coming through, like rays coming through the window, and he lifted up his hand to sort of touch the rays spontaneously. And I took it back to editing Photoshop. And I'm like, well, I could put like a dragonfly in there. I don't know why I thought a dragonfly, but I was looking at images on Google and I tried the dragonfly and I'm like, well, this isn't working. Let's try a butterfly. And I put it in there. It looked like he was, touching a butterfly. It looked magical, and I posted it, and people really enjoyed it. So that's sort of the last thing I did, but it was really cool. I like music. I love playing music while I'm doing shoots, and I'm really influenced by sound. So it was cool to just like jam. What do you want to listen to while we do this shoot? Oh, you want to listen to Imagine Dragons? Sure. Let's let's put that on. And we're still gonna do the Prince one, hoping I get some photo related Christmas gifts. I have a list, of things that can't be afforded, but there's some smaller items.
Yeah.
So I like to get back to that. And I like to get back to, more of the, artistic, nude, erotic, whatever you want to call it. I really had fun. It was a lot of fun doing that. And it
means a lot to people.
You plan it out, but things can only be planned out to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. Once you get there, it's like, ooh, what are you feeling? What, you can't like poke, you can pose somebody, but if they're not comfortable, it's going to show on their face.
Well, and it's good that you have that register. There's some people that thrive off of their person being uncomfortable. When I did my shibari shoot, the guy who did it with me, he's amazing, but he warned me. He was like, do not do this with just anyone. There are some really sadistic people out there. You cannot just do this, and this can really hurt you. So if you are not in this for a very particular reason, do not. And I was like, oh no, that's why I approached you the way I did, that I don't have any interest in doing this with anyone but you. I've seen your photography. I like your way. This is something that I see of you. I don't want anybody else. I don't know what attachment I have beyond that, but I can tell you right now, I do not like shibari. I like the look of shibari. The same thing with tattoos. I do not like getting tattooed, but I do like the look of being tattooed. So it's worth it, but I'm not in it for the feeling.
Yeah. The shibari rope, sort of rope BDSM things. I went to an event where people were, practicing, the art, BDSM, party, really loose atmosphere. People were standing around, and, it's sort of an underground scene, and you bring some chips and a soda, and like nothing's really going on at first at these parties. It's like people standing around, but like a couple hours go by and things are starting to move. And I remember my first event I went to, and I met a woman, and we're, getting along pretty good, start doing a little something. And I'm like, wow, this is really great. This is my first time going in this, and it's really working out. And this guy comes by who later actually did some rope stuff for, video stuff I worked on. And he said to the woman, he's like, hey, you want to get suspended, with rope. And she got so excited. She just forgot about everything that we were doing. I don't know if you call that cock block. I don't know what it was, but, it ended our thing, and she ended up getting suspended. And so what happened was, I think he did it right, but she hadn't eaten anything for hours. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. So her sugar or whatever dropped, and she almost passed out. So
yep,
it was a whole caretaking situation.
Oh yeah. I experienced what I think is a reaction to severe dehydration. My abdomen extended, like inflated afterwards. I did a suspension like inverted, And I think because I hadn't drank enough, I inflamed my abdomen and it just swelled, and it was really peculiar. I asked the photographer, I said, has this ever happened to you? And he's like, no, I've never experienced that. I was like, well, maybe it's just a me thing. But if I were to be realistic, you have to be very, very, very in tune with that action. Like people who even just, aerial artists, they're athletes, like you have to be athletic. And I was dipping my toe into athleticism. I had just, lost a bunch of weight and was doing jujitsu, badly, like just starting. And, nothing about me, I would say, oh yeah, you're an athlete. Not at all. I'm happy all my limbs work in a common sense.
Yeah. I did read, I found, what you wrote about being born and complications and what you had to go through. We played racquetball a couple times.
What my mom went through. My God, can you imagine what my mom went through? That's her first baby. Man,
yeah,
that's
a
trip. And then have a kid that's in a body cast like for 9 months after.
Yeah.
Oh, and then my brother wasn't easy either. He was born premature, jaundice, and then he had like this huge it was like a growth on the side of his neck that the first pediatrician that my mom took him to, he was like, oh yeah, it's just a cyst, it's nothing. And she, that spidey sense that parents have, she goes, no, that doesn't seem right. So she took him and got him a second opinion. It was staph. She'd actually had a staph infection, and she gave it to my brother. Her body kicked it, but my brother's couldn't. And had they not lanced it open, my brother would have died within days. Yeah.
Wow.
So both of us were just out of the womb, a thing. As if birthing kids isn't enough. I mean, just unbelievable. So yeah, we were both a project of love and sacrifice.
Well, I don't know if your listeners have checked out your writing, but I'm really enjoying your writing, and you wrote about your birth and your experience in the body cast. You had that picture. Oh my God, that was so special.
Yeah. Yep, I just found it. It was part of a collection that my aunt has that I'm committing to digital file right now. It's a labor of love because there's a lot. I mean, there's photos in there that honestly, dude, you want to talk about Beowulf? I think these people are from that time. Like, I have no idea.
Are you scanning them?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a labor of love,
dude. I have no idea who these people are. It's like the photos where they can't smile because they have to sit forever. Like, it's unbelievable. And what they wore, there's some crazy photos in there. A lot of really cool photos though, because my favorite era, I think, if I were to, and I'll ask you this question because this has been a neat conversation back and forth. Less than I say interview, but they're never interviews. They're just really cool conversations that I hope people enjoy listening to. But my favorite era is like 1950s, 60s kind of thing. I think that's my favorite era of maybe 40s too. 40s, 50s, 60s. I like the 20s and 30s, but it was kind of I don't know, there was something very delinquent about that time that I'm not like, I get it, but I liked the Greatest Generation a lot. Everybody wore a suit. Everybody there was like meaning to everything that people did. Like, yeah, there's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of, there's the wife beaters and the attitudes towards women. Yeah. But man, the fashion, the look of things, the design of things were made to last. Like, all the machinery was well made. Like, everybody was kind of in it together. Like, there was a pride behind everything that was done.
Oh yeah, I worked at a retirement home, and the women, just going to dinner or an event were so dressed up, like
Mm-hmm.
everything there and the clothing. And I'm like, wow. I mean, you look at the stuff from the 60s and 70s, the furniture, the clothing is so unbelievable. There was so much craft, you know, in design.
Now people are walking around in their pajamas and I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, I went on this New York trip and there were people climbing on the bus with their slippers on. And I was like, is that the look we're going to rock all day in New York? Maybe. Who am I? Who am I to say? But I'm like sitting there with like layers on, like knowing I'm only getting a day in New York. I mean, and who am I to assume this person might be just meeting somebody, taking a bus into New York to meet somebody and stay there and be like, this is just my transport for the day. But like, I'm like,
no,
you didn't never leave the house like that.
We had one time, we had a lot of times, but there was one time where I had leather pants and they weren't real leather pants, you know, and they did not last. But for the time being, I woke up and you were there and I said, I really want some chocolate milk. So you proceeded to, we walked down to, you know, the supermarket and I literally got like chocolate and milk. And we walked back to the apartment. And I think I carried the milk. You had, I mean,
it was a moment. I remember that. I remember. That was a moment.
I remember you going, what the fuck, man? Like, what the fuck? You know, just very, I was just very like, you know, raw, you know, just like living like a primal being. You know, I used to like mark my face like I was in a tribe, just in my apartment, just marking my face. You know, I felt like I was in some sort of different dimension, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that first place I had, that first apartment, was like a different dimension. In my spirit sort of like, you know, really, I think buildings and spaces have sort of consciousness.
Oh yeah, they do.
And people would just come over and like be like, "Oh, this feels cool here," you know, like very comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And it had those low ceilings, which I like, you know, makes very intimate. I had another apartment where the ceilings were really high, and it was a completely different impersonal sort of feel to the space.
I like the high ceilings personally.
Yeah,
I really do. Smaller ones, I mean, I don't mind them, but I like the of tall ceilings. I feel like there's room for all my hot air that I make.
Yeah, the first apartment was so small, you know, it was just, you had to sort of interact very closely. I really like that sort of, you know, just smaller space, you know. The second place was, you know, it was cool, but it didn't have the same vibration, you know.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to pause us real quick because I have to pee. Did you have to do, I don't know, be real quick.
Okay.
Hey, are you somebody who likes to draw? Are you somebody who wants to draw better? Are you someone who tattoos? Are you somebody who wants to tattoo better? Well, then I recommend that you go to our special offer in our show notes of this podcast page. Our website is theapprenticeshipdiaries.com, and on this page you'll find all our listed episodes. Within there, the show notes, there will be a link, TAD 10. Click on there and find yourself 10% off a year's worth of the Reinventing the Tattoo canon. It will make you better.
Speaking of pajamas, I'm totally in my pajama pants, but you know, when you're on Zoom, who cares?
Yeah, I didn't think it mattered what kind of pants I was wearing. You know, it's like,
you look good. If I have the video recording of this, so if you wanted to, we could maybe I could send that to you, and if you want to fuck with it, like I'm open to that.
I appreciate it. I have a friend or two who wanted to check it out.
Yeah.
I got myself a shirt, like I already had the hat. So, the bracelet is,
You look
this
good.
was,
That's
this was
very
my,
you.
oh yeah, actually it was my girlfriend's and it reminded me of my mom. So I kind of hijacked it. So it's sort of like if somebody said, "Hey man, why are you wearing that bracelet?" I'm like, well, it's just a remembrance. Leave me alone.
It looks androgynous. It does not look like something that I would even characterize a bracelet, honestly. Like it just, I know that's what it is, but it's an accessory.
Yeah, yeah. She sort of likes silver, unnatural, just like metal or plastic. So when I saw it, I was like, oh, I gotta borrow that. And it just kind of became mine. And it's just part of a style that I'm recovering as I recover myself. I was like, oh man, I like, this is kind of style. Because for years, while I was in a kind of a funk, mental funk, there was no style. It was like that was secondary to like just sort of making it each day, So to sort of recover that is like a part of me that I'm glad to have back.
Did you want to talk about that at all? I know we've talked a lot about, us and but did you want to talk? Because I know that that's what you're coming out of, and that's what's, birthing all this new stuff.
Yeah. I was doing all right. And I think my insurance ran out. It was a combination of things. And I've been doing, psychological psychiatric medication since 2012. Started with like Selexia. And that was like really worked. It was antidepressant. And, I really was like, wow, I feel good again after I went through a 9-month sort of depression. I got on the medication. I saw a doctor and she asked me, what'd you do yesterday? What'd you eat? I couldn't remember anything. She said, well, you should get on this. And some people have different feelings about medication, but it really worked for me. And I was in psychotherapy and sort of insurance ran out. And I'm like, well, I'm feeling good. So, I'm just going to roll with it. And I was doing well and got into like a winter time and just loss of energy. I didn't feel well. Tried to get back into treatment really quickly, and the same medicine all of a sudden didn't work for the new person that I was in that situation. And I was in trouble. I ended up hospitalized, multiple times in a year, and really had some very severe, situations. And being in the hospital or mental inpatient, whatever you want to call it, they take your phone, they take some of your clothes, you're in a hospital gown, you lose a lot of sort of freedom, and identity. So I came out of that and went right into taking care of my mom. I kind of recovered from the breakdowns and went back right into being a caretaker for my mom and then raising a kid. The first couple of months, it was like she's going to physical therapy. She had knee surgery and it was fine. I was hands-on, giving meals, helping with, dressing, but two people, if it was just one or the other, a kid or a parent, that's fine, but both, I ended up kind of back in the hospital. And the woman, I should say, that I'm with now moved in to sort of help with the situation. That alleviated some things, but it's just I was on medication, but it just sort of I couldn't get out of the funk.
I know that's a bad spot to leave you guys at. There's a lot ahead. We've got another hour of our time with Anthony next week. Please join us back. It's going to be interesting. We're exploring some cool stuff with him in this next part. I realize that this middle section, it's kind of like the middle of any series, right? Like, it's kind of, it links the two, the beginning and the end. But I have to say that for one thing, I think I talked way too much in this particular part of the podcast. Anthony, apologies. But it was a fun conversation, and I hope it met everyone's ears well, and it kept you all involved. Next week's cool. Please join us back. As always, listeners, I love you. We love you. Thank you so much. And Anthony, thank you very much. This was an awesome, awesome time.
Thanks for listening. You can find the Apprenticeship Diaries on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our IG is the_apprenticeship_diaries. If you would like to offer constructive criticism or an interview, drop us an email at theapprenticeshipdiaries@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from our listeners.